The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for January 13th, 2025 will come to order. Please place all electronic devices on mute, remove hats, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Hazen? Here. Mrs. Volker?
Here.
Matt Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Benicki?
Here.
Mr. Emmons?
Here.
Ms. Hahn?
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Here.
Mr. Violi?
Here.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Here.
I would like to open the floor for nominations for President of the Council for the year 2025.
Madam Clerk, it's my honor and privilege to nominate the Honorable Greg Hicksonball for President of the Council Board.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? I will now entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the council nomination of Mr. Hicksonball for Council President for 2025?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Matt Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. President Hicksonball.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, colleagues. I look forward to working with all of you and our friends at the administration in the coming year. And with that, at this time, the chair will entertain nominations for the position of Vice President of the Common Council for calendar year 2025. Mr. Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time I'd like to nominate Mr. Benicki as Vice President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Then at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor in closing nominations for the position of Council Vice President for 2025 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve Mr. Benicki as Vice President for 2025.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Then, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council on the nomination of Mr. Benicki for the position of Council Vice President?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes. Thank
The
you.
nomination passes 9-0.
Congratulations, Mr. Benicki, and hope you're feeling better soon.
I think he's muted.
And with that, before we go any further, good evening to those of you who are in attendance, and good evening to those participating remotely as well. Members of the public participating remotely are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting any comments they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments are asked to first state their name and address for the record, and then after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute. And we thank all of you for your cooperation with us this evening. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of December 16th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we have appeal number 2024-55. This is to the honorable members of the Common Council and the Board of Zoning Appeals. It's a use variance to allow a e-commerce store with no retail sales at R1 Single Family Residential, 611 South Main Street. This is signed by the petitioner, Victor Black. We also have petition number 2024-13. This is to the honorable members of the Common Council and the Plan Commission. This is a rezone from C1 Commercial to R1 Single Family for 611 South Main Street. This is also signed by Victor Black.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, so we will move into ordinances on first reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2025-01, an ordinance approving an agreement between the City of Mishawaka and the Mishawaka Firefighters Association Local Number 360 of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO. This contract would run from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2026.
Proposed ordinance 2025-01 will be assigned to the Public Health and Safety Committee. This evening, we have no resolution, so we'll move into ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2024-34, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, commonly known as the Flood Control Ordinance of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2024-34, report that they have examined said matter and that in their opinion it should be adopted. This is signed by members present, and I move for its acceptance.
Second. Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council on the committee report?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. With that, we'll move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-34. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Good evening, President, members of the council. My name is Derek Spear. I'm the city planner. Offices are located here at City Hall. Our department is requesting the approval of the adoption of the new flood damage prevention ordinance. The city participates in FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program. This program enables property owners to purchase federally backed insurance as a protection against flood losses. And to remain active in the program, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources contacted us midway through last year, and they said that our local ordinance has to be updated to remain compliant with the current federal and state regulations. The DNR, the Division of Water, they prepare a model ordinance that is compliant with the regulations, and this ordinance is used effectively by all participating communities across the state. So pretty much everybody's ordinance is very similar in nature. The draft ordinance has been approved by the DNR, and it must be approved by our council no later than January 27th. And we did go through the same process back in 2010 and again in 2015, which is the effective date of our current ordinance. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I just had a quick question, Derek. Is there anything substantive between the old ordinance and this ordinance that we need to be aware of?
They're not substantial. It doesn't change any of the maps. It just provides some additional clarification that came down through the Federal Register and some of their guidelines that filtered down through the state and then to us. One of the major things is that if there's any construction within a floodway, there's some preliminary requirements that weren't required before. But other than that, they're very similar in nature.
So what would be an example within our floodplain of construction? Because a lot of our floodplain is in the parks, correct?
Correct. So a lot of that's the flood fringe. So a lot of the flood fringe requirements are the same. So this additional requirement I was talking about is if you're actually constructing within the floodway, which is usually confined to the channel itself.
Oh,
But
okay.
so yeah. So with the fringe, there's very little changes from the old one. So
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Mr. Carroll.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Quick question. I think I got the answer Ken gave, but for the, just for public record, this ordinance change doesn't make anything more restrictive than what's required and make it harder for somebody to rebuild if anything
It
were to
does
happen?
not. It does not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just out of curiosity, and this may be a little bit difficult to answer, how frequently do you and your department deal with these type of issues?
So very rarely, to be honest. I mean, a lot of times we'll have some new construction. We had some new construction out in the Edison Lakes area. It's in the flood fringe, so we'll have to come back and require an elevation certificate for that. So we have very little, if any, like within the floodway itself. Most of the stuff is within the fringe. And so, yeah, but usually, this year we did have, there was one instance where we had a violation that was in a floodway where somebody was actually excavating out in the floodway, and then we informed them. So there's those kind of violations when we become aware of them. So yeah, but that was just some excavation that somebody was coming out and doing a rock wall, so they needed actually a permit within the floodway.
I see. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else with us this evening who wishes to speak in favor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0. Proposed ordinance number 2024-44, an ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Mishawaka and the Mishawaka Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 91.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Public Health and Safety, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2024-44, report that they have examined said matter and that, in their opinion, should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? And hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council on the committee report?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh?
Yes.
Committee report passes 9-0.
Thank you. With that, we'll move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-44. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. President and council members. I would like to speak in favor of adopting this ordinance for the collective bargaining agreement for 2025. Start by thanking the council, committees, and the Fraternal Order of Police for the hard work that was put into putting this together. This collective bargaining agreement main purpose was to consolidate the 2023-2024 collective bargaining agreement with a memorandum of understanding, reference the 12-hour Pittman schedule shift that the police department went to in 2024. It was cleaning up some language and related to the hourly schedule as opposed to days and so forth. Another substantive portion of this was to make a provision for the call out of SWAT members given shift strength for the police department, and all parties were in agreement on how that language was put together. So I would ask if you have any questions and recommend the adoption of this ordinance.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chief Arndt? And Chief, thank you for the work that you and Chief Nowacki did, in addition to our friends from the FOP and the council. That was very collaborative process. This was a much simpler bargain than some of the ones that we've had in the past. But we appreciate your leadership throughout that, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and the administration as we move into our next round of negotiations later on in calendar year 2025.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0. Proposed ordinance number 2024-45, an ordinance annexing contiguous territory to the city of Mishawaka, Indiana, and providing zoning classification therefore. This is to annex 7.72 acres and rezone to S2, planned unit development for apartment complex on Douglas Road. This is a public hearing with no vote.
Thank you. With that, we will open the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-25. Anyone wishing to speak, if you would, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you before regarding development of property at 15503 Douglas Road. My name is Brian Posen, representing Kittle Property Group at 310 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, 46240. We are a vertically integrated development construction management company focused on affordable workforce and multifamily housing opportunities with a portfolio of over 140 properties in 16 states. We are proposing to annex and rezone the property into 234 senior affordable independent living apartment homes to be called Stoneleaf Reserve. Stoneleaf Reserve will be an approximately $48 million development consisting of 144 one-bedroom units and 92 bedroom units with amenities such as raised garden area, dog park, outdoor entertainment area, garages, transportation, and numerous interior community spaces for resident use. We've applied for funding and we expect approval in the coming months, and then would anticipate construction commencement in January 2026 and fully complete in November 2027. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I welcome any questions on it.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Ms. Hahn?
You say senior living, is that 55 plus or 65 plus?
55 plus.
55 plus, thank you.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Hosen, for your presentation. If I heard you correctly, you said approximately how many other locations you have across the U.S.?
So we've got 140 properties in 16 states. We've got 7,000 units in Indiana, 1,600 units a senior, and then this is our first development in the county, but we're also in Hammond, LaPorte, Michigan City, and Ligonier.
And are they all senior living?
No.
No.
So we do market rate, we do workforce, we do affordable, and they range between family and senior.
Okay. So out of the portfolio, percentage-wise, if you could just take a guess, how many are the senior?
Probably 40%.
40%? Okay.
It's growing.
And you have experience, so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Hi, thank you. What's the difference when you're building an apartment complex? What's different with, between the different types? What do you do with senior living apartments that is different from your family apartments?
Sure. The obvious one is we don't do 3 and 4 bedroom units for senior. And then we also create kind of a little bit more of independent living, of living or aging in place. So the spaces are a little bit more consigned. I mean, we have opportunities if you have disabilities, but the units are designed more to accommodate folks who have maybe various, maybe not necessarily wheelchair challenge, but also mobility challenges, and just kind of having that space to get around the apartment a little bit easier than a traditional family unit. And then things like, raised height, toilets, front controls.
So just to kind of follow up on that, when I see all of these different senior developments going in, is there funding available through, is this being subsidized through grants or programs through the federal government, or?
So not subsidized, it's through the low-income housing tax credit, and it's allocation of tax-exempt bonds that we apply to the state that provide credits that then we turn around and sell to investors to raise the upfront equity. And it's not necessarily geared towards senior. It's a competitive process of amenities and things you have to score with, and so it's either family or senior, and the site lends itself to a more senior site, just with the size of the acreage and just the proximity to the amenities there.
So just to follow up on the financial part of this, does this mean if you're using low-income tax credits, this is a senior living that will be geared towards low-income seniors?
Right, so depending on your understanding of the terminology, affordable can mean as low as 30% of AMI to 60%. So all of our units will be 60%, so it's sometimes called that middle, the missing middle kind of terminology, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's affordable, but it's also a little bit in the mid-range of the income levels that we'll be targeting.
So maybe just to clarify that for me,
Yeah.
so if you're looking at your competition in the area, maybe you can't answer this question, but is there a senior apartment complex in this area that would be the high level and one that would be the low level, just to kind of give me an idea of what you mean?
I believe, I can't remember the property, further up Fur Road, across the highway, there is but they also have assisted living, but they have some independent living pieces there. They offer a little bit more services and a little bit more acute for the medical needs. They're probably at the higher end. Lower end, I don't think there's a lot of competition or a lot of other places, and that's kind of why we like the area and the site.
And then will it be serviced by, I mean, when you're working with seniors, is there a bus stop close to there? I mean, are there things that make it?
Sure. So there'll be a couple different things we'll be doing. First of all, there is a bus stop directly across the street with Transpo. And then we will be providing a community vehicle for transportation options as well. And then we'll also be partnering, we haven't signed any agreements yet, but we'll look at the local community and get service providers to assist with any kind of needs of the seniors. We'll also be providing services through our management arm.
And then will you be this is not a property that you'll sell. You will manage this property?
Own, develop, construct, manage.
And how many people will you employ there?
Probably just 3 folks, a main site manager, an assistant manager, and then a lead maintenance folk. And probably, depending on the need, we might have a second maintenance tech. So at least 3 or 4.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr.
For
President.
the medical needs, they're probably at the higher end. Lower end, I don't think there's a lot of competition or a lot of other.
Excuse me.
That was just a replay.
Oh, is that what that was?
I think that was me.
Here, I thought there was somebody
Like a
busted into
ventriloquist. Your mouth wasn't moving at all.
Your
They
talent.
took over the meeting. from us.
Both times.
Nicely done. All
That
right,
was
Mr.
weird.
Carroll,
I don't like
the
hearing my
floor is
voice, though. I don't.
City Hall's haunted.
Quick question. If you answered this and I didn't hear, forgive me, but are you able to share what you're targeting as far as rents for these places for our seniors?
Sure, yeah, I did mention that. Approximately $875 for the 1-bed and about $1,060 for the 2-bed.
What was the second number, sorry?
About $1,060.
1060. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your development here, is there a name for these apartments?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stoneleaf Reserve?
What, Stone?
Stoneleaf
Okay.
Reserve?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? One follow-up. Thank you for your presentation, and we appreciate your interest and your organization's interest, not just in St. Joe County, but in Mishawaka in particular.
Definitely.
You answered one of my questions with regard to the definition of affordable. But the staff report notes, and then in some of the exchange of documents between yourself and our staff, there's a reference to the fact that this particular property is not located within our municipal electric department service area. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I read the dialogue between yourself and your staff as indicating that your organization would prefer to be within our service area, or did I misread that?
No, that's correct.
What would be advantageous to you and your organization as a developer to be within Mishawaka Municipal Utilities and being serviced by us as opposed to AEP?
The short answer is it's better rates, which affect the utility allowance for the rents, which allow us to keep the rents more affordable than otherwise. With AEP, we'll have to adjust the utility allowance, which then increases the rent we have to ask for.
So that cost, along with all the other costs that go into your development costs, has a direct impact on the rent that tenants will pay.
Correct.
And I appreciate that answer. In recent years, it's become more and more of a concern, I think, for all of us, as well as our administration, that we don't have the ability to be able to grow our municipal electric boundaries consistent with the growth of our municipality. And my hope is, and I believe that's shared by all of us, is that the Indiana General Assembly will take a look at this issue once again and provide us with some legislative relief. And certainly, it sounds like it would be not only in your company's best interest, but in the best interest of those who prospectively will live in your development if that were to take place. So I appreciate your comments, and my hope would be that your organization will look for opportunities to advocate along with us for that type of change to take place as early as this session of the General Assembly.
Correct, absolutely. We're anxious to go.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you again, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely, including that ghost who spoke earlier, who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Then hearing none, we will close the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2024-45. Consistent with the requirements of Indiana law, we will once again consider this matter and cast our vote at our next regularly scheduled council meeting. Thank you. And with that, we will move into privilege of the floor. At this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor.
Mr. President, Council, Happy New Year. Dave Woodmayor. Here to talk a little trash with you. As you know, we have for the last 10 months or so been working with our vendors to, first of all, rebid and put together the packages, and then working with you to get all the contract, get it passed, get the contracts in place. We said from the start it was going to be painful, and it is. We knew that because we have experience. It was in the early 2000s when we switched the last time, and it was painful then. We've grown a lot since then, too. So here towards the end of the year, we had the ordeal of dropping off 30,000 bins and picking up 30,000 bins. We flooded the zone with any kind of communication we possibly could, just trying to reach as many people as possible. There's still some misinformation out there. So we have several sites set up to handle that, as well as Waste Management having a call center, as well as the city taking on hundreds of calls in multiple departments. Matt Lynch in particular has done an outstanding job of shepherding this through as best as possible. He lives trash for probably the past 2 months, and so I know he is working diligently, tirelessly on it. And so the transition has occurred. Waste Management is learning the routes, and if they are making progress. Matt's going to get up here and talk to you about kind of an update of where we are, a little bit more detail than I'm going to talk about, and I think Dave from Waste Management is here as well for any questions. In the meantime, I have authorized and worked with our Central Services Department to do a No Trash Left Behind operation. We call it Operation No Trash Left Behind. We're going out and picking up any blue bins, whether they have trash in them or whether they are empty. And so we're bringing them back to the Dodge complex where we have a dumpster set up, and we're emptying the trash there. And we are accumulating the blue bins that have been left behind. We set it up almost like the same routes as we do leaf pickup. And so today they got through, as of about 1 or 2, they had picked up about 50 bins. And so we're going to keep that up all week long. We think we'll get through the city pretty quick, probably tomorrow or so. And we'll go back as people are taking out their trash. Maybe some other blue bins will show up, and we're going to grab those too. We know that people were on vacation and maybe didn't see the communication, so we're going to kind of follow the trash routes for the upcoming week because we do think we will get some bins that way. And there are some blue bins that we have noticed that are up against people's homes. They might be empty. We will not go and get those. As long as they are not a city issue as far as code enforcement, we will not enter private property to pick up bins. That is up to the owner of the bin to do that in working with the resident. So if you see those, that's fine. Call the contractor who the bin belongs to. Otherwise, if you see something out on the road, let us know, and we will add it to our list, and we'll go pick it up. I still feel confident, and we always strive to provide the highest level of service. Any kind of service we provide, we want at the highest level that any citizen in any city will get. And so I feel confident we'll get there. We are already out on it, working to make sure that, no trash is left behind. And it's painful, but we will get there. And as I remind our staff, as we're working through this stuff, I still wouldn't trade our city's problems for any city's problems. So with that, I will invite Matt up unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? We appreciate the update. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Honorable President Hicksonbaugh and honorable members of the Common Council, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your patience, for your understanding, and thank you for your calls and all the calls that you've taken from constituents. I've taken probably about 150 calls day-ish for the last few weeks, but I know you all are on the front lines, and we've tried to arm you with all the information and communication possible as we tried to flood the zone. And we've had about 7 trash stories. I haven't been interviewed to talk about trash in my life, but I'm a little trashy, so we can get there. No, it's been good. Not just about trash and solid waste, but about how we can best serve our community. I think that through the process, Chris Jamrose, John Rogaman, and others did a great job with the bidding, and we worked together through the contract process, and we worked with you all. And I feel as good as I did before, as we worked through the contract, that WM is an exceedingly good partner. So thank you for all the good work that you're doing, all the calls that you're taking. And just know that as you call me, we take care of it on the spot and make sure that our friends at WM are notified, and they're on it. And it's not just working with them, but also working Republic as they finish up and being as nice and as polite as I can with them and asking for their assistance in cleaning up the community. As the mayor mentioned, we have no trash left behind going on, and we'll run that as long as we need to in order to make sure that no blue bins exist when we're done. So before I introduce my friends, I would just ask that you pray for them as they have to work with me. And we've been a little surly, but no, we've worked hand in hand, but we get a lot of calls and we have a lot of conversations. But it's all through a transition. We're only in our second week, and I'm very confident with our partners that they're doing the right things to come up to speed and to serve our residents well. And that goes across all phases of our utilities, from water, pure water, a strong grid for electricity, making sure that the waste from waste management goes to its appropriate place, and trash is a part of that too. Utilities, Mishawaka Utilities, we're a $90 million plus business, and with that we take it seriously, and the service to our constituents is first and foremost. Our service, from my perspective, needs to be and is second to none. There are some things we need to work on and that we're addressing, but we're thankful for our new partners. With that, I'm going to introduce our account executive from Waste Management. His name is David Wainscott, and we worked with him, and as you did, through the contract process. But before he comes up, are there any questions for me?
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lunch? Matt, not a question, but I want to echo the mayor's comments earlier. We appreciate the work that you have done to try to help make this transition as smooth as possible, and I mean that sincerely. And I also appreciate the extra effort that the mayor has made to marshal our internal resources to try to address some issues that admittedly may go back to the prior vendor Republic rather than WM, but that's appreciated as well. So thank you both for what you've done. My concern and my hope is that we'll hear a little bit more from our friends at WM about this, is that one of the reasons why we were interested in switching vendors was the internal workload that was being passed to our staff from our vendor with regard to issues that were within their control, not ours. And my big concern is that that unfortunate pattern appears to continue. Granted, we're new to the relationship, and my hope would be that it's going to dissipate. So while, I appreciate the work that you're doing, but it doesn't make me happy to hear that you and our central services staff and others are having to take care of what is a combination of tasks that should be shouldered by two outside vendors. So thank you for what you're doing, but please continue to encourage WM to step up to their contractual obligations as you have.
Yeah, thank you. And can I speak to that just for a
Please.
second? Just to say that I don't see this as my full-time job moving forward, and it isn't now, but it's taken up a good majority of my time in the street department and some of the business office. So as we have a good partner here, WM, and they're stepping up, it's happening, and we're seeing it, but if you know me, I'm pretty fiery, and attention to detail is not negotiable. And the things that we talked about in our partnership and what we laid out in the contract is non-negotiable as well. So the customer service piece of this is being taken on, and we will transition fully to WM as we move forward, guarantee. All right? With that, I'll introduce David Wainscott.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mr. President, council members, thanks for having us here. Most importantly, I want to make sure that you all understand that we appreciate the partnership, and we are working through some items, but we have a great team who I brought with me. One is Matt Leskevich. He's an operations route manager here in South Bend, and Travis Upp, who is the district operations manager. So These are the guys that are making things happen behind the scenes, making sure that the drivers know where they should be going, when they should be going, and making sure that everything gets picked up. I guess to start with, WM is and always will be working towards a sustainable tomorrow. I know the mayor is no trash left behind. It's pretty much the same. We're working in the same pattern. We're committed to being reliable, efficient, safe, whether we're talking about trash or recycling or both, for the city of Mishawaka. And we do recognize that there has been some pain points, but we are 100% committed to making sure that we handle each and every one of those, okay? I know that there's been, when we first were brought on, it was gonna be about 13,000 carts or residents. That's ended up being a little closer to about 15,000. So there's a little bit of adjustment that has happened kind of behind the scenes that has maybe helped some of the issues, not all of them, but part of it. But again, I would like to thank Matt Lynch as well. He has been a great partner. He's available at all times. I know that I've talked to Woody outside hours and Tony as well. So we're trying to be good partners and being available as well. But overall, I kind of want to speak to the extra calls. And I think I was led to believe that the folks internally in your admin departments were trying to get away from, all these calls. We want the exact same thing, okay? What we're finding is people are staying online or on hold for way too long. And I know you're all hearing that as well. So the main ingredient, there's two options. Number one is the callback feature. Any resident in the community will not lose their place in line, but they won't have to sit there. They can go about their day. So we recommend that, number one, use that callback function or feature. And I do know that Matt has already uploaded that to the Mishawaka website because I checked it and it's on there. The other piece is the WM.com self-serve. All residents should be able to go on there through the link that's on your website, and they'll be able to add their address and then be able to kind of make their choice of what they're trying to accomplish. Those two pieces will reduce the calls in a huge way. We also know that we're getting some missed pickups, but we're getting missed pickup calls, a lot of them on the blue containers. And again, we know that those are in the process of being picked up, so that will solve, I think, a good portion. So between those two options of the self-serve and the callback feature will kind of reduce and probably level set a lot of the community. And then as far as, I know everybody's used to, just like at my house, if my current provider comes down the street, I know that they turn around and come back, and they're normally back in 10 minutes. What I need the residents to understand is we will pick up the same day, and we are. But if the blue truck went by and used to come back a few minutes later, that may not be the case because we're going to run it as efficient as we can. And so that could change. But again, I don't want you to take it as we're changing the whole operation because we're not. But it could be different timing. And I think a lot of people, because we've heard, so folks are calling in and saying, hey, I just saw the guy go by. Where's he going? He's coming back. So just a couple of items there that I think would settle the community just a little bit, potentially. As far as, spilled trash, we're going to make sure that that's picked up. We do not want any trash left behind either. Our name is obviously on this partnership, and we want to make sure that we're good partners all the way through. So I won't go through all of what's on here because most of this is what we do every single day. Whether we're talking about a crew out that Matt's leading and he's sharing a couple nuggets of something that he read or heard on the news or whatever that might be. But safety is our number one priority, and Matt and Travis make sure that's happening each and every day. So every single driver not only gets the community cleaned up, but they get home every single night. And again, in the end of it all, we're working for a sustainable tomorrow. So If anybody has any questions specific to the document, I'd be more than happy to go through. But I know that there's a lot in there, and I just want to make sure that you all understand, really the nuts and bolts of what we're doing behind the scenes.
Well, thank you. Mr. Emmons?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
No,
ahead.
no.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question. We have the trash and you have the, excuse me, the recyclables. I noticed that the recyclables are picked up in my district a lot quicker and earlier than the trash. Is that normal? Is that what your plan is?
I can speak to that. So the way we set up the routes is so the trucks aren't coming down the same road at the same time or in the same area at the same time to prevent, any kind of spacing issue. So a recycle truck is starting on the opposite end of the neighborhood compared to the trash truck. And when I say neighborhood, it could be completely different. It could be east-west, different side, different
I'm
side.
just saying because in my district, the recyclables are picked up real early in the morning.
Yeah.
And the trash is way late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I just wondered if that was the way the routing was set up, or was that just kind of a get acquainted?
No, that's just the way it was routed to keep drivers away from each other to prevent that kind of button up down a road or anything like that. Because these trucks are big and we don't want them to get stuck and have to back out of somewhere. Backing is something we like to try to prevent for safety reasons. And that's why it is routed that way.
What time do they start in the route?
So we do a crew out at 5 in the morning. They do their pre-trip, takes about roughly, we do that safety nugget. We'll speak to that safety nugget, whatever is on the news, spilled trash, coaching opportunity for the drivers. That's what we'll handle in the morning. They do their pre-trip, which takes about 20, 25 minutes. Then they crew out, they leave the site, and they take about 15 to 20 minutes to get out to the neighborhoods, which puts us roughly at that 6 o'clock mark to stay within the noise ordinance.
Like I say, I just know that the recyclables is picked up quite early.
Yeah. Do we got to push back in your,
No,
start on the other
I'm
end?
just trying to see if that was a normal process of what you're doing, so.
Yeah.
When I can tell the neighbors and that's your
Yeah,
schedule.
it will be the norm, yeah. The routes that we had set today are the planned routes and going forward. And there might be some tweaks and adjustments. Now, I'm not saying that as tweaks and like there's not going to be any massive changes. You're going to stay on the same service day. It just, the efficiencies are going to improve. So if they're coming in by 7 o'clock today, I bet in the next month, they're probably going to be there about 6:45. We're just looking for that efficiency, time savings.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Not necessarily, well, I do have one question, but first and foremost, I just want to say that you guys at my house are 2 for 2. You did a great job on the
Thank
on
you.
the first two, and as we explained in several meetings and try to prepare the public as best we can, there are going to be hiccups. I think, given the grand scheme and the scope of things, I think our previous vendor did an outstanding job of picking the majority of those up, as you guys also did at the delivery as well. So I've had a couple questions, but this one was a little bit, not necessarily concerning, but I wanted some clarification. I heard that if the lid was open, that you guys would not pick up the bin. Is that correct?
No, we're going to pick it up if the lid's open.
Okay. The arm can
That's-
still
yeah.
reach it? Okay.
Wherever that rumor started, we're not going to bypass a can just because the lid is open. No, we're here to, have a sustainable tomorrow, and that starts with picking up the trash with us, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I know my colleague, Mr. Violi, will ask a couple questions regarding the app that I share as well, but I'll
So
turn it over.
I would like to, I did go on the Apple store and get my WM, and it won't let me enter until I get an account number, but then Matt has his all set up. Do I have to have a certain, it's not I tried to put in the account number that was on my utility bill. That's not it. So I'm trying to figure out how Matthew got it. I know he's smarter than me. That's not the question. But how did he get it on his? I can't get the app, but he has the app. Do you know?
Matt, I'm assuming that you either used your name or your address.
Yeah, and I can't remember. That's the extent
Yeah,
of
both-
it. And it
both
pulled
should
everything
work.
up.
Both options should work.
Pulled it in and pulled
Says
all
it-
my information up.
But mine says, I loaded it and I set up Face ID. I thought I was doing really well.
Right.
And then it says account number. and it shows a little picture, information. I don't have that account number anywhere. So what am I doing wrong?
So I know that you have my cell phone because we talked over the
Yes, we
weekend.
did. Thank you. I appreciate you following up on that.
No,
Thank you.
that's what we're here for. We want to make this right. So maybe we can do that offline.
Okay.
And I can
sure.
walk you through it.
All right.
Okay.
To kind of follow up with Mr. Ammons and what you had already said, and these are, I had some elderly residents that live by me questioning. I know we're the same day, but I think Republic in my neighborhood or in my area, the recycling or the trash would come in the morning, and then, of course, the other one would come in the afternoon. I know you guys said, and I know the days are the same. Is that going to be the same, or you guys are going to do it however, like you said, works best for you? Or should I say it's going to be the same, one in the morning, one in the afternoon? Not necessarily, what's the feedback on that? I should tell them.
Kind of what you guys are seeing right now. There will be some additional route improvements, but again, not changing dates or anything like that. We're
Right.
staying same days. It's going to be the same routes, but it will get more efficient as the drivers get going. And Matt has helped with getting a letter out to customers to have their totes in front of the cars and things like that. We are going to end up gaining some time. So we will be arriving a little bit earlier, but again, it's still going to take some time to get that improvement in time.
Right.
Because there's still a lot of things. We're getting used to the route wear, things like that. But once that's settled,
You'll figure it out.
You won't have an accurate time, but it will be close. I mean, I know people are, reading their newspaper, drinking their coffee, and they know when the mailman comes by, they know when the trash man comes by. So with that being said, eventually we will get to that point where it is, man, they're always here at 6:40.
Yeah.
They're always here at 6:45. Where are they at? It will get there.
But it won't
It's just-
necessarily be one in the morning and one in the afternoon. It could be both in the morning or both in the afternoon.
Yeah.
One, maybe a half
Yeah.
hour, an hour, one
Well,
after the
and
other.
it could vary.
Okay.
It just depends on, trash trucks starting west side, recycle trucks starting east side.
I
But
got you.
It will vary, but
Okay.
there will be a consistency, and you guys will
What-
see that going.
That's what I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, ultimately, you're going to get used to seeing it the same way, give or take.
Okay, thank you.
Just add a quick comment regarding the app. I think I haven't navigated it fully, but it's pretty cool. I mean, you can today find out exactly when my trash truck came and the recycling as well. And I was messing around with the preferences as well, so these users and these customers can do it as well, set up their preferences. If you want to get text notifications on, there's no trash tomorrow on MLK or et cetera. So strongly suggest and promote the app.
Well, congratulations to you.
It's really slick, and you're right. Basically, any question that somebody would call in on, they can find out on there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments?
Just one more.
Mr. Emmons.
Appreciate your interest and your dedication of making sure that all the trash is picked up and also recycling.
Sure.
I've seen in neighborhoods that people are using the recyclable to put carpeting and everything in it. That is not a recyclable item. What do you do then? You pick that up as trash, or what do you do?
Yeah, so it should go in the trash, and it just needs to be cut up into, I think it's four-foot sections.
Well, this here is basically rolls, and they just stick it in, and it's sticking way up over the
Yeah,
thing.
and that's really it. We want everything inside the carts.
Yeah.
And not so much is the cart lid closed, but we want it to be able to be closed. We don't want it sticking up in there.
But what I mean, will you pick that up and as trash, or will you pick that up and just
As long as it's inside the cart,
on,
trash cart.
yeah, but they're putting it in the recyclable.
Yeah, no, we don't want it in the recycle.
I know that, but I'm saying, how are you handling that? I mean, are you gonna pick that up, or are you gonna just let it there and remind people? I mean, I've seen it in a number of places. I don't know whether it's just time of year that people are putting carpet or what, but.
Yeah, I'll step into that. So when we do have something like that, say the lid's closed and it's something trash that's in the recycle, it does get sorted. Not by us, we don't have a facility here in South Bend or Mishawaka, but it does get sorted when it gets sent to where, the recycle facility where we take it.
Okay.
So.
Well, I say I'm seeing it because it's outside of the bin, so I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
if it's outside of the bin, the driver will do everything to get it into the other bin, and, we're going to consider that one of those 2 bulk items or
Okay.
anything like that, and we'll get it in the trash guy. The communication is very good between the drivers and myself, saying, hey, this is here, this is there, and we'll end up trying to pick that up, where it needs to go. He's not going to grab it if he sees carpet hanging out of, he knows, he knows what's recyclable and what's not. Not all the community does, but that is something they look for. If they see something like that sticking out, he will take that out and put it next to the can. And that's another advantage of having the trash driver coming behind the recycle driver, so.
I appreciate that, and we just have to educate our citizens that what they can and cannot put in the recyclable bins. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. I want to echo Mr. Mamaleni. I have not had any trouble with my trash and recycling, so thank you, but a lot of people have. Particularly the first week, it seemed like recycling wasn't getting picked up. Like in my area, trash was picked up, but recycling wasn't. But that's not my question. I would like clarification. A lot of people, including me, have extra bins that we use. So there's, just a brown trash bin that we used for yard waste, that kind of thing. I know we've talked about this before, but I would like to clarify it because it keeps coming up. If I have an extra bin, can I put it out there, even with a trash bag in it? Or where your driver could dump the bin in, or ixnay on any extra bins? I see you are shaking your head no.
We really want green WM carts.
Right.
I can add to the problem.
Yeah. It really comes down to safety.
Go ahead.
So we've tried through a lot of communication to make sure that people know that, but it really comes down to a safety issue. The arms, the way it's set up, the way the bins are designed are to pick up the WM carts. And anything else, if they would try to pick up, they could drop, and it could be a liability, not just for WM, but for us. So, and the carts, the size of the carts, we believe will allow our consumers to maximize what they put into the carts. So there's an option to leave a bag if needed, but we said, nixay or ixay on the, unfortunately. And I've had some conversations that people have invested $200 on their carts, but only WM. And that's part of the contract as well.
So if I have extra trash, now
Yeah.
anybody
Hypothetical.
has extra trash, then I need to put it in a black plastic bag. So then that would be my bulk item.
Yeah, really, it's cart content plus one bag. And then you also have the two bulkies, so
Okay.
you definitely have options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's still going to be tough as the, people start getting yard waste, and it's still going to be rough going into the spring probably with that kind of stuff. Anyway, thank you.
And we'll work through it. We're your partner.
Mr. Carroll.
Just a quick clarification on what she's saying. With the bulk item, if they had an extra bag, would you prefer that they, once the trash has gone through, put it back in the bin and leave the bin out, or do you just want the black bag left there?
If you're not going to save it for the following week, it'd be best to just have it out.
Okay.
That saves us having to come back
Yeah.
later.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? And gentlemen, I have a couple. First, let me start out with some positives. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
And for the work that you're doing. I believe wholeheartedly that you're committed to fulfilling not just your contractual obligation, but stepping up and providing the service to our citizens that they have the right to expect. So
Sure.
thank you for that.
Yep.
Along the lines of good news, like Mrs. Volker and Mr. Mammaletti, as of today, I've been through my second cycle of WM pickups, and no big problems. And to your point about some efficiencies being built into the system as we move along, first day, we were used to being picked up in my neighborhood in the early morning, and it was closer to 5 o'clock. Today, it was before noon. So at least in my little corner of Mishawaka, we're starting to see that happen. So thank you for the work that you and your staff are doing. Put me in the category of people, along with Mr. Viola, who can't get the app to work. And I'm an Android user, so it's not just an Apple issue. And I had the same type of error message bounce back. And I appreciate your offer to help him and maybe myself. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the thousands of people who are out there similar situated, who don't have access to you, who can't get the app to work. So my hope would be that there'll be a broader community-wide solution that you'll be able to come with that can be communicated out rather than doing it piecemeal. Again, I don't mean to sound
you're spot on.
unappreciative,
You're
but
spot on. And I thought about that after I responded that way, but, so what I'd like to do is go back and see if I can get a template and that I can get with Matt. Maybe Matt can publish it on the Mishawaka site, and then everybody will have the same capabilities.
I
And
would
to see
appreciate
exactly how that
I think
should
that's going to be a better fix to the issue than to try to do it ad hoc, person by person. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Along the lines of information that could potentially end up on our website and be communicated out to the public, I also appreciate the effort, I'm sure we all do, that went into putting this document together, this action plan, I'll call it, with regard to how we work through the transition. Would you have any objection to this being posted on the city website as well, so that not just those of us who are here or those who are watching remotely would also have access to this information? Because I think it's going to be important for people to understand what's going on and that their concerns are being addressed, not just being ignored.
Sure.
So you take a look at it. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be this
let
very
me
document.
confirm that. It
but-
should be fine, but let me confirm that, then I'll get a message to you.
Fantastic.
Can I add something to that? If you're going to do that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was just looking at this, and if you're going to do that, you should probably put the app information on it. I mean, if it's going to go out to the public, it should have the app information on it, and, you know,
Well,
customer
so the-
service phone number, and
So all of the app information and, or the basics of getting to it and the phone numbers, those are already on the website. But we can do that.
I'm just
We can
thinking on
add
a
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
document like this, why not be redundant and
Okay.
put it on here too?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
that's okay. I agree with that. Although I'll say, let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good. I think it's more important to communicate out some accurate information here than torture ourselves whether it's the perfect document.
Got it.
Because there are a lot of questions that are percolating out there, and hopefully this will be helpful. So thank you for working with Matt to make that happen. You know, with regard to the missed pickups, and set aside I'll call them erroneous reports of a blue bin that's now being taken care of via Republic, and then the efforts of the administration at the behest of the mayor. With regard to WM mixed pickups, you know, the contract is very specific with
24
regard to what your commitment is, as soon as possible, but no later than the end of the next business day after the complaint is received. Do you have any feel for how you're able to, are you in compliance with that commitment to the community at this point in time?
I believe we are.
Okay.
Are you hearing otherwise, may I
No,
ask?
I'm just-
Okay.
I haven't heard to the contrary, but in the landscape of all the other concerns, I think it's a fair question to
Yeah.
ask. So
No, it's more
since you
than
were
fair.
here, I thought I would ask.
I'm under the impression, and we're hearing that everything's being solved within the 24 hours.
I appreciate that. Again, I haven't heard anything to the contrary, so I think we're on the same page. To the extent that I'm wrong and that issue, along with the other issues, aren't being addressed, I'm looking at the implementation timeline portion of your document, and I appreciate the concrete commitments that you've made to take certain steps. To activate the customer service enhancements and to take some of the other, you know, short-term steps here, that feels to me like 3 months down the road is too long. So I'm going to ask you to revisit those steps. The first bullet point, 0 to 1 month, I mean, that's reasonable. The other steps, that feels a little bit lengthy to me because I don't recall when representatives of WM stepped to that podium that they told us it was going to be 3 months before we got the benefit of the contractual commitments that you made to us. So anything that could be done to expedite that, I think is important.
Well, I would like to say, I know that Matt and I had a meeting on Friday, and, I mean, these are all in place, 100%.
Sure. And I appreciate that.
Sure.
But as much as you're able to control, if this can continue to be a priority for not just the three of you, but everybody else who has a role to play within WM to make this happen, I think we'd all appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, what we've done to implement that is we've put together, well, I know Matt talks to Matt at least twice a day, mostly 4 or 5 times-ish, something along those lines. So I know that's happening. What I've put together is basically all of our sections that come to this entirety. Every Friday, we've scheduled a meeting for now, and Matt is involved in that meeting as well. And then, so any adjustments, updates, concerns, those will all be addressed at least once a week, if not more. I talk to Matt at least once a day. So I don't see any issues, put it that way. And I don't think that meeting will have to be every Friday forever. But for now, we want to make sure that we're communicating and making sure that the community is getting exactly what they need.
Yeah, again, I appreciate that. You know, along the lines of communication and reporting back, again, in the implementation timeline, you make a reference to sharing a report with the Common Council on the survey results that you're going to do of the customer base within 6 months. And I think that is information that would be well received by us. There also is, however, the commitment that you made in paragraph 15 of the contract to be able to provide us, and this was a suggestion of my colleague, Mr. Benicki, if I remember correctly, for you to quarterly provide us with a summary report of complaints or commendations. That makes sense and made sense when we approved this with what we're discussing here this evening and what we've experienced. My ask is that in addition to those weekly meetings that you're having with Matt, as we have council meetings, certainly you're welcome to come and provide us with
Share the
similar
updates.
updates. But if you can put that in writing and communicate to us the equivalent of what you would share with us with regard to how we're moving forward in the transition, I think that'd be well received by us. And then if we have any questions, we can work with the administration to reach out to you and ask you to come visit us again so that we can talk. So again, you're always welcome to come, but in the interest of your time, I'd rather have you out working to fix the problems than worry about traveling here to talk to us. And if my colleagues disagree with me on that, I'm sure they'll let me know. But again, my comments and questions aside, I remain optimistic that we made a good, solid choice with doing business with WM. I'm concerned. I think the community is concerned. I think 9 out of 9 of us are concerned, along with the mayor, the administration, Matt Lynch, and everybody else who has a role to play here. And I get the sense that you're concerned as well. So we ought to be able to fix it, but please continue to make it a priority as we move forward, like I believe that you've done to this point.
We will for sure, 100%. And we're 100% committed to the community in the city of Mishawaka.
Thank you again for everything that you're doing, and we look forward to hearing more about how the process is being fine-tuned and efficiencies are being built in moving forward.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under privilege of the floor?
Hi, everyone. I'm really nervous. Never did this before.
That's okay.
Met a couple of you before. Matt, Kate, we'll probably be friends. Great questions, great questions. Luann, I've met you many, many years ago. My name is Tammy Solomon. I drive bus for School City of Mishawaka. I've been driving bus for 25 years, different places here around town, school districts. I'm so nervous I can't even stand this. And normally, I could be standing by Trump and take over. I'm very upset with some things here in Mishawaka. I live at 127 Alfred Street. I have a corner lot. And for the last year, I've been racking my head against the wall to where I've had too many strokes. And I blame it on a whole lot of people in this room right now, because I've had 4 dogs 2 doors from me, and I've got photos, and I want you guys all to look at them.
Ma'am, we don't speak that way in this chamber. So you can pass those photos down at the end, and we'll pass them along. And by the way, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. But just tell us a little bit more about what your concern is, and
The
please.
dogs have been being abused, they've been
Okay.
not fed. The owners left in August to go to a wedding in Atlanta, left the dogs unattended. The lady moved in several years ago with these pit bulls. We live one road from Beeger School. These dogs have continually gotten loose. There's domestic violence calls to this residence continually. It's unbelievable how many times the police have to go to this residence. The woman that lives there, they're in their 30s. The husband's a convicted felon. She at all times has a gun. She's pointed her gun, I don't know how many times at me. Pointed her gun at me. She's got a pink gun, she's got a black gun. Don't know what size they are. It doesn't matter, because when somebody pulls a gun at you, you back off. I did everything I could.
Why don't we let her finish, but, and then, gentlemen, I think we want to hear from you. But, okay. All right, and I appreciate that, Mr. Rogoman, thank you. So one of the things that I'm going to ask you to focus on is what your concern is, and you're doing a good job.
The concern is that there's not verbiage in a code.
I'm speaking. We're very respectful, and we're going to let you speak in a minute here, okay? But try to focus on what the concerns are in as succinct a manner as you can, okay? And I understand your concern, and just seeing you, I can tell that you're very upset by this, and that's all appropriate.
Well, it's affected my health.
And we really want to hear about that. But if you can try to get to the heart of what it is that your concern is, then we're going to hear from those in the city who have the ability to be able to help to address your concern, like they already have with regard to one part of this concern that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, it wasn't addressed until I went to the Mishawaka Forum. That I know for fact. I've been to the mayor's office 3 times. I was escorted out of there. I walked in very calmly, asked to talk to the mayor, and was told, just because you're a resident of Mishawaka, it doesn't give you the ability or the right to be able to talk to the mayor. I said, if he's that busy, would you please get a calendar out, book me out a week, book me out a month, whatever it takes. You can't talk to the mayor, ma'am. You need to leave. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. 3 times I went there. I could describe the women that was sitting at the counter that told me I had to leave. I've called the attorneys. I've called the chief of police. I've called and talked for 1 year. Everything is documented. And they kept telling me they needed a warrant. They needed a warrant. The Humane Society needed a warrant. But nobody would give a warrant. This last time, the dog got loose again. You've got photos of that particular dog with the cables wrapped around its body. That dog got loose maybe 4 weeks ago on a Saturday and went to attack one of the neighbor women. It first went after the 14-year-old lawn care boy next door. She ran out the door to get it away so it wouldn't get this kid, and it came after her. She's backing up, trying to get the dog, screaming to get away from me. She actually fell. Neighbors called 911 because she could have had her face ripped off. The woman that has these dogs bred these dogs for fighting. She brags about it. She did this in Florida. One of them have puppies. One of them is pregnant now. The back of the photos that I'm showing you, I have them all dated. Every one of them dated. She had them locked in a shed as of the 29th. They couldn't get out. There was 3 of them locked in there. No food, no water, no daylight. I went over that morning and I took a big bag from Christmas and I filled it with dog food. This particular woman has asked me to buy her dog food. In November, she said the dogs hadn't ate in 5 days. And she begged me to buy her dog food. I went right and I bought her dog food right then and there, plus 2 bales of straw. She had the one dog that's in the photos in a wire cage for 2 years, in weather just like it is right now. She had it outside in a wire cage. Everybody in my neighborhood has called and complained, and we've got nowhere. All we've been hearing from the Humane Society is that the city of Mishawaka can't do anything because there's an ordinance that stops that because these dogs are your possessions, so the police can't go in. Code enforcement, which Ken Witowski has been fantastic with me. I mean, this guy, it's an honor to meet this man. This guy did everything he could, and he really did. We had communication daily. But when you see these dogs, what they were supposed to put down today, apparently, I don't know if they were put down, but then I was told from the Humane Society that 2 of them even had heartworm. If you have a pet, you know that's under neglect. One had a broken leg for over a year. Over a year. When they took it out, it was all videoed, the one hobbled on 3 legs because the one's been broke. Friday night I got home from our game at Plymouth basketball down there, Mishawaka, about 11:15, and I'm shoveling my patio for my dog, and I hear screaming and yelling. Her husband's a convicted felon. I thought when you were a convicted felon, you wasn't supposed to have accessibility to a handgun. I know for a fact she's got 2 of them. She's also got a small child there. We live by the school. The police department, I'm sure, has a record of how many times they go there for this domestic violence. Something has to be done. There's been no answers. I've got log after log after log. All my neighbors have took logs down. We didn't know where to turn. I had to go to the Mishawaka Forum and say, no one will help. I was turned away from the mayor's office. I couldn't get the police department. I had a Detective Pfeiffer. If you look at the pictures on the 29th, he said those dogs look fine. You can almost tell every organ in the body of the one dog. How does that dog look fine? And then when I called him back and said, would you please help me? And he told me that in my driveway in front of my house, right at my house, right there in the street. He told me, he said, there was nothing he could do, and now it's been passed on to another officer that was going to take over. But it's been 1 year. The dogs have been removed. Unfortunately, it breaks my heart, but they're better off this way now. I was told they were going down at 4:30 today. I don't know if that's true. But I don't know where the communication is lapsed, and for you great people to change the verbiage, if we've got a code in Mishawaka, and that she's able to get another dog, I heard? She's able to get another dog? Are you kidding me?
Well, let me address some of the points that you made. And again, I appreciate the concern that you've raised and can understand why you're here this evening speaking with us. So most recently, my understanding is that with regard to this situation, and I appreciate the emails that you have sent to the council on a couple occasions as well. If I'm not mistaken, that was you, correct?
No.
Well, we received an email about this situation. It was within the past several weeks.
Correct.
And when we received that, I was in contact with Chief Arndt and Mr. Rogaman and Mr. Kenny Witkowski from Code Enforcement. And it's my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, that when you refer to the dogs no longer being in that home, that was a result of the police department and Assistant Chief Wiley having gone and obtained a warrant for the dogs to be taken out of the care of the individual in question. And those dogs have been removed. Now, I heard last evening what you referenced to, that there's at least one other dog that's on site.
No, there's no other dog on site.
Well,
All dogs
I'm
have
glad
been
to hear that.
removed.
I'm glad to hear that. But what this situation has done, you're correct. We do have some ordinances that deal with some animal control issues. We have an animal control commission. Mr. Rogaman's part of that deals with some of these issues. And this disturbing situation, I'll call it, has generated some conversation amongst council members. Mr. Carroll in particular, who's been involved with this issue, has asked to, I don't know that he's even had a chance to be able to talk to the administration about this, but as of last evening, we discussed it, and Mr. Carroll's going to reach out to Mr. Rogaman and Chief Arndt and Mr. Witkowski and asked to partner with them at taking a look at our ordinances to see if there's something additional that we need to do to beef up our ability to enforce some reasonable expectations and to arm these gentlemen with what they need to be able to address these type of situations. So we agree with you that this unfortunate situation should cause us to take a look at what we have in place as a community and try to arm the people who can address these situations with every legal mechanism that's possible so that they can, in the future, if God forbid there's another occurrence, they can act more quickly and address this. So we're on the same page with you. We agree that we need to look
But why did it take
at.
1 year, sir, when I supplied, nobody had any photos except the ones I supplied?
And again,
No one.
And again, ma'am, I'm going to ask you not to interrupt me when I'm speaking. No one is interrupting you when you're speaking, so we're going to ask you to afford us the same courtesy. And there may be some of my colleagues who want to speak, and I'm going to ask you to afford them that courtesy. Your question is legitimate. It's beyond me or anybody who sits up here to be able to answer that question. What happened in the past is a legitimate question, but it'd be beyond us to answer that. What we can commit to and what we can work on and focus on is what we do need to do moving forward so that there isn't a repetition of any shortcoming. I'm not saying that there was or there wasn't, but to the extent that there was, we need to arm our administration with the ordinance language that they need so that they can do the job that they want to do on behalf of people like you in the community so that these situations, when they occur, can be addressed in the best possible way that they can. I can tell you without one bit of hesitation that the Corporation Counsel, our city attorney, the chief of police, our code enforcement director, and everybody else who works for the city of Mishawaka, including your elected representatives, want these type of situations to be addressed appropriately. There's a legal component to it. We have to make sure that we're operating in conjunction with the law, but we also have to make sure that we are able to address these situations as quickly as possible. So we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Again, Mr. Carroll and others are going to be looking at this and working with the administration to address what needs to be addressed. But I would always encourage you to continue to reach out to Mr. Witkowski. It sounds like you have a good relationship that you've struck up with him. Mr. Rogaman, Chief Arndt, they're always available to help as they can. And please, it sounds like you have struck up some relationships with individual council members. Let them know what's going on. I'm happy to help as well. We take this issue seriously, and we're committed to working with the community moving forward to address it.
But where did I fail? That it took a year and nobody helped me? Where did I fail?
It's a legitimate question. I'm not sure that you did. That's a question that I'm going to ask you to defer on, and I'm going to defer on answering until we have a different setting where we can sit down and we can look at this differently rather than try to address that in a public meeting on the floor here, which really isn't the best way for us to address it. But it's a good question. Let's have that conversation in a different setting where the other people who were involved to this point in time have a chance to say their piece as well.
Do I sit down?
In a minute, I'm going to ask if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments that they want to make. But again, thank you for sharing with us what you've shared and for being here this evening. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, I just have one. And thank you, Tammy, for bringing the subject to our attention. To let everybody know when we had talked, that was kind of my message as well, echoing what President Hickson talked about, is how do we fix this situation going forward? That's kind of, part of our purview with ordinance language. And I did do I had some good conversations with the Humane Society and things that could help. And 3 things that they brought up were things like tether restrictions in the ordinance, inclement weather restrictions, and then, how do you deal with repeat offenders? And they referenced some other communities in the area that had different language. And to me, I see that as probably the best path going forward in having conversations with the administration. But if there are shortcomings, we absolutely want to fix it. There are pet owners and then there's people who own animals. And we want to make sure that we're keeping good pet owners protected and empowered to, take care of their animals. But those who, and like a situation like this, that we have a path going forward to how can we make sure that those animals and community are kept safe from that. So as President Hixenboss said, that's what I'm committed to, and we want to make sure that this moves forward.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under privilege of the floor?
Thank you.
Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Thank you. With that, we'll move into unfinished business, of which there is none. New business. And at this time, the council has been provided with a list of our council committees and various appointments to boards and commissions for 2025. And at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve appointments to council committees and appointments to various boards and commissions for 2025 pursuant to the list that was distributed to us from the clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve our committee appointments and appointments to boards and commissions for calendar year 2025 as reflected in the document distributed by the clerk's office. Any additional questions or comments? And hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council on committee appointments and appointments to boards and commissions?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
The motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to come before the council? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief reminder that this month's Neighborhood Watch for the neighborhood of Twin Branch will take place on January 15th at 7 o'clock at the fire station number 4, that is on Harrison Road. This will be a follow-up meeting from the previous meeting regarding coyotes that have been seen and located in some of our residential areas. This month's speaker will be Jessica Merkling from she's an urban wildlife biologist for the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. She will be our guest speaker and try to answer or ask any questions for her. She'll be able to provide some information. She'll be there at 7 o'clock. You are all welcome. Bring a friend. I know I said Twin Branch, but all of the city residents are welcome. Twin Branch Neighborhood Watch meeting, January 15th, 7 o'clock at Fire Station 4.
Thank you. Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, on the 16th, which is Thursday, we have the first district community meeting. It'll be at 7 o'clock at St. Babel's. Our guest speaker this month will be Chief Arndt. So we're asking anybody that's all welcome to come and meet your chief of police. He's new. He's got a lot of ideas. He's going to talk about his qualifications. He's going to talk about the realignment of the police department and answer any questions that you have. So it should be a very interesting and informative meeting. So everybody is welcome at 7 o'clock at St. Babel's. And as usual, you'll be furnished West End donuts. So everybody's invited. So again, come and meet your new chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Then if not, a motion to adjourn would be in order. We're adjourned. Thank you. I give it to Debbie and let her.